I'm sitting here with Saif, who is also a writer and Substack, and have a legal background as I do. He's very interested in startups and legal tech like me, so I've been really looking forward to have this conversation. So, Saif, could you maybe just tell us a few words about where you're from and what you're writing about and what you're doing at the moment?
Sure things. Great to be on the podcast, Tobias. Really like what you write about. Sort of, I reached out to you in terms of how we could probably collaborate on future things. So a little bit about myself. My name is Saif, short for Saifullah Aleem. I'm a writer on Substack. Came across Substack when I think about a year ago, where I was just reading a few newsletters about fintech, about venture capital in general. At the time, I was working in a sort of leading community of investors, VCs, and entrepreneurs in the UK called the Entrepreneurs Collective. And at that time, that really piqued my interest. But really started from university. I always wanted to run my own startup. I actually pitched one of my startups at university, came second place for it, and I said, I'd continue the dream. So I really wanted to go and see what the tech ecosystem is like in the UK, because it's very risky at 22 when you're just leaving university and kind of wanting to go out and venture and sort of do your own thing when you don't have any experience at all. I didn't know what SEO was. I didn't know what SQL was. I didn't know what email marketing was or how successful a newsletter really can be. And that's turns out Substack, massive company now, is making loads of money on just aggregating newsletters and giving people a platform. So for me, that 1 year after leaving university was super insightful. I met so many people in the VC ecosystem, accountants, lawyers, uh, investment bankers, all sort of trying to understand this new sort of asset class, which promises like ridiculous amounts of ridiculous returns. You've seen the Hollywood movies on it, Silicon Valley, Steve Jobs, all these sort of amazing stories. It's kind of like the sort of sexy part of I'd say finance now. Everyone kind of wants to get into it, and for me, at that age, sort of being in that tech bubble as well, throughout my university as well, sort of reading about the massive valuations. We saw WeWork, how ridiculous the valuations got there. Um, it's just crazy. So I said, this is probably the ecosystem that I probably want to be a part of. This industry I want to tap into and sort of learn about. And yeah, so really my background is that I studied law at university, and then after studying law at university, it doesn't really teach you much about any niche industry. It just tells you that, okay, this is case law, this is how you apply it, this is how you argue it, and not much about procedure either. So it was very much of a, okay, I know what this is, but I don't know how to apply it. So I said, okay, let's go work in industry for a few years, because I knew for a fact that how competitive law is to get a training contract or to get pupillage in the UK. That is what I'm hopefully aiming for as well. To get either one of them, it's a ridiculous line. You have to have crap tons of legal experience. You have to have crap tons of some sort of industry experience as well. But I studied during COVID, so during COVID, no, all the experiences that we had were pretty much online, not much to gain from. So as soon as I left university, I said, okay, I got to change tactics. I got to, get into this industry, really understand the insides and outsides of it, build my sort of, first customer base, I would say. Understand like, who these early stage founders are, so that by the time when I finish my sort of, LPC or SQE or my pupillage, then I can sort of, go and help these guys genuinely. Yeah. So that's a bit of a, in a nutshell, what I've been up to and sort of why I guess, ended up on this podcast today.
Cool, cool. It's interesting with the shift from law to the tech world, because this is, of course, something that varies from university and from different countries, but overall, law is not in general very tech savvy as a profession. The law have a tendency of kind of lagging behind technology, both in the tools and it's very, what's the right word for it? It's like a meritocracy. Is that the word?
Yeah,
It's
meritocracy. You can,
as it's like a legacy institution. So it can be very traditional, quite old. So I would say it's kind of a large shift to go from studying law and reading lots of book, of reading lots of books to going into like AI and technology and all this stuff. It's like two kind of different worlds. From my own story, I started as a salesperson, basically, as like a business developer at a startup that worked with GDPR, and it was completely different from what I've been doing studying law for the over the past 5 years. So I've been reading and reading and reading and trying to understand all of these things. And then suddenly a recruiter, right as I was about to finish my studies, a recruiter reached me on LinkedIn and talked to me about this position as, yeah, basically as what's it called, a business development representative. So basically a salesperson who calls people on the phone and tries to sell products. And I
That's
just
really interesting because my first job out of university was pretty much this. At EC, I was part of this sort of the team of, I guess, salespeople there as well. So I was like effectively lead generation at that point, a very junior role, uh, basically working off the commission that we got. It's a fantastic, opportunity to sort of, I guess, develop your persuasion skills, and if you can do that well, I think that pays dividends, whether or not if you're working in the law or even pitching your own startup to investors.
For sure, and that's not something that there's a lot of focus on, at least not at my university. You learn about the rules and how to apply the rules, but you don't really learn the social aspects, which is important and arguably is going to be more important now with AI that can analyze text and produce text and such. So this social aspects of, when you meet clients or whether you're in the venture capital, it's such an important part of everything you do. That's also why some people say that sales is the most important skill you can have because it can open doors for you everywhere, right? So
I mean, like if you're a great salesman in any company, right, you can rock up 5 o'clock, an hour before closing or end of day spend. And if you're bringing in like, the biggest clients, they're paying like 100K retainers every month, you're the founder's best friend effectively. So if you can do that, then that's, the best thing ever. That's probably one of the greatest skills. You're definitely an asset to any business in that situation. But on that topic of sort of, AI and the law and everything, so, do you remember when ChatGPT first came out? This was like November time.
yeah,
No, I'm not talking about beta testing air time, but that sort of November, early Christmas period. I think in 2021, that was the time. Or was it 20? No,
23,
it's wait,
I think
22. Yeah,
22 exactly, 22, yeah, 1.5 years ago.
2022. So when this first came out, I was like, "Well, this is really powerful. This is really cool." And the API came out as well. And at that time, the API was, and I think it still is free, but the Twitter API at the time was free as well. This was pre Elon times. Um, so what I did is I made it a case summary bot on ChatGPT, which is basically just tell ChatGPT, okay, this is XYZ the law. I want you to summarize it like this, and then like tweet it out like as a Twitter bot. So blending that sort of learning from legal, I guess, boring hundreds of pages of case law all the way to like, just a Twitter thread. I think, that was a great sort of, business idea. But then I thought, that's way too basic. Like, anyone can build that. There's no moat associated with this. So what I was really interested in sort of doing is take the facts from every single case. So, you've got, everyone loves true crime. A lot of people love to watch true crime documentaries. That's documentaries about serial killers, documentary about murderers, documentaries about people who, done crazy things and then just got trouble with the law. I said, well, there's a massive market for these sort of, stories. So why don't you create a Twitter? Why don't you create a chatbot that can effectively take all those, gruesome cases that you have lying around in like, case records from ages and ages and just sitting on Westlaw. In the UK, we've got Bailey, which is a free legal resource, so that people don't have to, have to pay for a subscription to Substack. Sorry, to Westlaw or LexisNexis in that case. So what I did is I linked sort of the PDFs from old cases with the ChatGPT, took the facts from them, and to create sort of like true crime documentaries. as like, a sort of fan fiction kind of way. What I'm really struggling with right now is sort of, using that sort of prompt that we have already and making into a sort of, a video, whole sort of, small YouTube short or like a video documentary, so that we can get like, finally go and monetize it and do something really cool with it. But I guess as and when Sora comes out, and it's available for people to use, then that will be, something really interesting to look at. Yeah.
Yeah, I like the idea. I really do. But I'm also aware that there are so many people who are going to do things like this.
Of course. Of
It's
course.
and that's one of my main concerns with AI in general. You can't tell what's already now, it's pretty hard to tell what's real or not on the internet. And it's going to get
Absolutely.
so much more difficult over the next couple of years. What can we do about that? Is it something you thought about?
I genuinely think that, we shouldn't be afraid of it. I mean, if you're not using AI or Chat GPT to optimize your work, then you're really missing out. I genuinely think. I know a lot of people are against the idea, that a lot of people are purists in the sense that they want authentic work to be, rewarded or anything like that. But it's like when I like to think of it when quartz watches came out against mechanical watches. So when Seiko first released the quartz watch, which is battery powered watches, and there was in Europe there was a massive industry of mechanical watches. A lot of people were saying at the time that, oh, we're not going to wear quartz watches. I know they're cheap. I know they're effective. I know they tell the time perfectly well and everything. But a mechanical watch, automatic watches, we're going to prioritize the craftsmanship and everything in that. What happened in the end is that a lot of mechanical businesses and a lot of watchmakers that prioritize those sort of mechanical watches and everything, and didn't take up the sort of quartz revolution. What ended up happening is that they all ran out of business, and they just, dwelled into those small little big companies which you now recognize as Rolex, Omega, some of the big Swiss watch houses. There used to be massive industries everywhere else in the world about this. But I think it's the companies that take advantage of the hybrids. Like, you could talk about cars now as well. You can bring cars into it. Some people are purists. Some people love the sound of a V10 engine. Me personally, as a petrol head myself, I love the sound of a V10 engine. But the fact of the matter is that now you have these, like, hybrids that are coming along. I think it started off with the trilogy, the Porsche 918, brilliant car. It's sort of more of a hybrid as well. People don't like that about that because it's Porsche is sort of a purist sort of motorsports individual sort of favorite. They prefer naturally aspirated engines and all that kind of things. Air cooled, water cooled engines, all that debacle. But if you don't embrace that technology, you're going to get replaced. So what you have to understand is you have to sort of work with it and understand how you and the technology can really create a superior product. And I think people just shouldn't be afraid of it. Just work with it, optimize it, use it where you might lack. Like sometimes it might be the case that you're very busy, you need to do something else, but you need to push that Substack article out so that your audience is engaged 24/7. You don't want to miss out on that opportunity. So I think in those circumstances, understandable. I mean, it's there to help us, increase productivity, and I think people shouldn't shy away from it. It's perfectly normal.
Agreed. 100% agree. And also in the legal industry, it's so important to embrace these tools because otherwise, the companies that does not going to be left behind. Exactly as you say.
Absolutely.
How do you
Absolutely.
use AI today in your work? If you want to share.
Yeah, sure. So AI is a lot of, I guess I use it as a second brain. So if I have some sort of ideas about like, what I should write about, what I think is interesting, if it's, so I work currently at a company called Adzuna. It's a competitor to Indeed. And Indeed is a job board, one of the biggest job boards in the world. And we focus primarily on the UK industry. And what I'm working on is it's a very successful company. They're doing about 25 million in profits year on year. And they've acquired in 2015 a company called workinstartups.com. And this is a job board specifically for startups in the UK who are looking to hire cheap, quickly, and fast. Um, and for me, because I'm in a team of three people, just managing this entire sort of operations for this thing, I use ChatGPT really just to use as a second brain because so much of the time I'm talking to, let's say, prospective partnerships. That's the stuff that's going to bring in all the money, but also you need to sort of, I guess, bring in, build a sort of the marketing brand. So if you need ideas, okay, what do I need ideas for a newsletter? Okay, I'm going to talk about remote work one day. One day I'm going to talk about valuations. One day I'm going to talk about let's say you get the gist of it. It's effectively
Hmm.
listing out different ideas and how you can sort of take one piece of article and spread it out numerous days. So what I normally do is I'll write the article out with the help of some chat gpt in there as well, naturally, if I'm struggling and I need to meet deadlines quickly. Then I'll write the article out. I'll break up the article into three individual stories, post for LinkedIn as well, and that's my LinkedIn strategy for the week. And I think that is super useful to number one, optimize your reach. So even if you're on Substack, or even if you're on any other page, and you want to boost your marketing, like really quickly, really well, and you just have, like, let's say, a limited budget, you want to work off basically just the ideas that you have and not pay a freelancer, or let's say hire another person to go and do this stuff for you. This is a really easy and quick way to do it. And I think it just requires a lot of discipline, that you have that list already sorted out. You have the contents already on your Notion spreadsheet, and then link it to your docs. And then you just schedule it onto your LinkedIn. So I think it's really, for brand optimization, it's fantastic. If you want to build a brand, if you're starting from scratch, then I think this is brilliant for that sort of strategy. And just generally, generative AI for creating content is fantastic. As long as you have taste, you proofread, and you sort of do the spell checks and the basics, which you're meant to do regardless if whether or not you're writing by yourself or by ChatGPT, then I think it's a brilliant tool to use.
What about in venture capital business more broadly, and especially in legal tech? I wonder if we could use generative AI to analyze new business opportunities or assess whether a new product will do well or if it won't do well. Do you think this is something that would be realistic in the next maybe 2 to 5 years, that the AI could actually do a better work at doing venture capital than the venture capitalists? I don't think so, but I would like to hear your opinion.
No, it's really interesting. And it really depends on the data, because AI is effectively dependent on two things. Number one, energy, and number two, data, how good the data is. And for something like venture capital, where it's a lot more is about risk and sort of minimizing risk in that industry, I've seen so far. So I read an article, it was on Substack as well. It was looking at quant as a service. So in investment banks, you have these, quantitatives who, just break down the numbers and the data sets and do the math and sort of see what's the risk in, like, picking certain stocks, XYZ. When the data becomes a lot more accessible to people, and when the data becomes sort of, let's say, um, you know, first of all, you need good data, and then you need data that's not biased or anything like that. And I think for that data to really come out, we're still quite behind in terms of the years and how that's going to work out. Um, I mean, because the venture as an asset class in itself is a very small asset class. And competitive, if you compare the returns of the S&P 500 or anything like that, it's still very low. Your money's locked in for 4 years. S&P 500 10 years, you're going to grow about 8%. VC can only give you 7%, and that's on a good day. um, so in terms of that, if you do, let's say, a cost benefit analysis for it, I think we're very far behind. It definitely is a possibility that AI could assess new business opportunities, but at the end of the day, the business of VC is based on selling to people if you can persuade them well. And people buy from people they like. That is the number one rule of sales, is that people buy from people they like. People don't like to buy from chatbots, or people don't like to buy from things. So
Exactly.
ultimately, if ultimately, if you are someone who is just going to rely on AI and think that oh, people will buy this because the data is great. People are going to buy this because the data and thing is fine. It might work for a bit, but I think it'll be a bubble and it'll be pop really quickly. But then at the end of the day, I think, it is something that is quite personal. Angel investing in itself, I respect the people who go out and do it and invest their own money and sort of, help out young founders. But they do it after like hundreds of meetings with these people, that's kind of the gist of it.
And this is where I think the engineers are underestimating the social aspects of many of the things humans do. For instance, cold calling. A few years back, I read some articles about people who claimed that cold calling was going to be dead because AI was going to take over those roles.
Yeah,
And it's just
yeah.
insane to think about because if I get called up by a robot, I hang up like within a tenth of a second. And the
I
same
get
if
what you
I
mean. I get what you mean. Yeah,
and just
yeah.
even if you and chatbots are great when they work, but for instance, if I can't do something in the Google suite and I try to figure it out by texting with a customer chatbot and it can't help me, it's so frustrating. And those kinds of things worries me a bit because for tech CEOs and for executives and for AI salespeople, which many of these people basically are, AI is such a huge opportunity to cut off unnecessary costs and replace human labor for so many tasks. And I'm afraid that it could become too much and we have to deal with like weird situations all the time and AI, and it's going to be frustrating. It's not going to be like a doomsday scenario, but it's going to be super annoying to like navigate on the internet and see so many fake social media posts like all the time about. So that's really what I'm concerned about, that people are overestimating AI's capabilities and using it to replace people also in like social aspects. But we'll see, we can only guess. And I also feel like the more I learn about this stuff, the less I realize I actually know. It's like, a bottomless hole of learning about this stuff. There's more questions than answers.
Absolutely. And I think, as the world sort of, comes to that stage where we have a lot more choice, um, it really puts us in that sort of scary world of what is real and what is not real. And I think one thing, this is sort of, the debates that we used to have in school. So I did A-level English literature in school, and I think it was a brilliant subject, right? We dealt with texts like George Orwell, Aldous Huxley, 1984, Brave New World, all these dystopian novels, written about the future. When technologies, I mean, Orwell wrote at a time when computers were just coming into the frame. World War II sort of accelerated, how algorithms work and how the computer was going to be look like in the future. And then Huxley wrote after him. I think Huxley wrote before him. I'm not sure. I haven't read those books in a long time. But there's two sort of visions of that future. Orwell says that the future is going to be very bleak and stuff like that. It's going to be something like, he says, it's a boot stamping on your face. Effectively, any sense of reality will be taken away from you, and then you be force fed. What the person who holds the monopoly thinks it is, which is very scary because if you think about AI and its power, AI does rest on two things: data and energy. So who controls the energy controls who has access to it, and who controls the data controls what you have access to. So it's in the Orwellian sense. It sense if someone gets a monopoly over this, and I think Sam Altman in his Lex Friedman interview that just came out a few days back pointed to this, that no one should have a monopoly on this thing. This thing is devastatingly powerful, and whoever has it should be shared ownership, etc. But people are going to use it for that bad thing. On the other hand, Huxley, he points out that there's going to be so much choice in the world that we're just not going to care at that point. We're just going to give up. I'm trying to find the quote, what it is. Um, but yeah, when I get it, I'll sort of, pass it on to you. But
I'll put it in
yeah,
the show notes.
yeah, yeah. There's two quotes that I remember. Just it just looks into the vision of the future, and I just think that these writers at the time when they were writing, you have to ask yourself, like, what's changed in the world. Yeah, fair enough, we've had this technological progress and everything, but the concerns are still the same. People still need to eat, people still need to sleep, people still need to have some level of happiness in their lives and everything. But the fact that their words still reign true today, I think that's just powerful, and I recommend it to anyone. Go read the dystopias. I think it was a couple we read in school. It was 1984, Brave New World, We On the Road. Um, so many of those, the dystopias, and I think the most technologically advanced one was We. Yeah, it was a Russian novel. It's about transparency, effectively, that people live in glass houses, and I'm not sure, if people come across a good translation of it or not. But it's a Russian novel about dystopias, and it's really cool. Really, if you're really into that stuff. Personally, for me, I just enjoyed debating, what the future might look like in those scenarios. Um, but yeah, highly recommend.
It's fascinating how these books were fiction a few years ago, like 50 years ago, and now many of like 1984 by George Orwell and all those classics. Suddenly they are more relevant than ever before because we're
That's
actually
that's
moving
that's,
towards
that's
that reality. It's
exactly,
mind-boggling.
exactly. Exactly. They talk about the telescreens, and pretty much, I'm sure it's whenever Sora comes out, and you see, let's say, an Airbus taking off in a crazy angle of it, and he says, "Oh my days, it can do that, it can do that," and then you realize it's all AI generated. But what scares me the most, right, Tobias, is how when the letterpress came out, the Gutenberg press, for writing and anything like that, it was really accelerated by the Reformation of the Church in Europe. So when Catholicism was, challenged by Martin Luther, and then the letterpress was taken advantage of, and the word was spread everywhere, and then you had the whole schism between Catholicism and Protestantism. That was a technological advance that led to a major world event. World War II had the computers, the advent of computers. You had the Bletchley codes. You had, that guy's famous UK scientist. He had a famous movie made for him as well, in Bletchley Park. I forget his name. But yeah, but that was basically the birth of how computers and computer systems are going to work out in the future. The Cold War accelerated the space race, and how satellite technology and rockets. What is going to be the world event that kicks off AI?
I
That is
think
what I'm scared about.
I think
That
social
is what.
media also changed society in a very fundamental way, both good and bad. Some good things has come out of it, but what concerns me is that we as people have not really understood what kind of impact social media has. And it also sets a very bad precedence for AI because we have these few gigantic companies who basically controls all the data and all the energy, exactly as you put very eloquently. And that's going to be the same thing we're going to face with AI, the same companies actually. There's like a report from the Mozilla Foundation where they put it very well. They say something like the people who ruined the internet are the ones that are building AI, and it's kind of concerning. But uh,
I
but
didn't
but
know.
anyway, what are you most excited about in AI? How are you going to use it for the next couple of years? Besides the thing you have told me here, do you have any other ideas?
Oh yeah, of course. So at the moment, I've got a sort of a side hustle that I'm working on with my dad, actually. And my dad's a salesman as well. He works in the textile industry. He sells textile machinery and all that stuff. And sort of he's coming to sort of close to his retirement age and everything. So what we set up is effectively I would say it's a sort of a textile buying house. So if you're interested in, let's say, if you're a hotelier or anything like that, and you need to buy, let's say, high quality bed sheets, high quality pillows, high quality curtains, or any fabrics or any textiles or anything like that, we'll source the best things and sort of give you that solution. But what I'm really interested is the tech side of things. And so far, I've seen, with the power of augmented reality, and sort of integrating some bits of AI into it, sort of in order to, I guess, filter out clients and first my customer. But more aspects of it is augmented reality, is how you can take, let's say, a picture of your bed, and you want to know, let's say, I want this print on it. Let's say I want the Eiffel Tower on my bed or something like that. I want the print of that, but I don't know how it'll look. So I like the idea of that, you can take your phone and sort of, place it there and sort of, augment reality and show it how it is. That's one way of things. I want to do things. The second way is I want to include more transparency in how, like, let's say, how uh, give people a peek into, like, how these things are made, so they have a closer relationship with, let's say, the factory workers. They can have a look inside and see, okay, XYZ is person is making this, they live in these conditions and things like that. I think from a if you're using it for social good, if you're using it to sort of, demonstrate to people and build trust, again, it goes always back to sales: building trust, building likability, building product transparency, and then ultimately bringing the decision maker into it, which AI will fail at, because I don't think any decision maker is going to be an AI bot. When you're speaking to them directly, if you meet those sort of, all those touch points, then I think you're making, transactions a lot more quicker, and decision making process is brought a lot shorter. So if you can take those, aspects of it, and I guess use some sort of AI and some things, I guess some clever technologies to do it, then that's really interesting. So that's how I intend to use. I know it hasn't been much about AI. It's been much more about technology, but I'm so keen on sort of, working on that AI, true crime documentary generator. That's something I'm really interested in, and see how that goes. But I feel like, so much of the creative process is down to your experience and your ability to write really well. That, the AI stuff, it's going to be good, it's going to be great. It's not going to be something I probably do for the rest of my life, but it's something, I can probably exit out of. Someone would be interested, let's say a Netflix or a Amazon Prime would be interested and say, okay, this guy's got, like, traction. He's got, like, 5 million views XYZ on his YouTube channel from just producing this sort of case summary bot. Then the people who would be interested, I guess, in that case would be, let's say, singer songwriters, people who want to talk about, dangerous things, drill artists, gangsters, raps. So most of them don't even write their own lyrics. What they do is they have people who write for them. So if you have a sort of, a bot or something like that, they can help suggest them lyrics, compared to, like, let's say this case that happened in 1894 or something like that. Off the basis of that, if you can suggest them, let's say, a rap lyrics or something like that, then you've got, you're making money of royalties, you're making money of this, making money of that. If you're writing for a script or anything, Amazon, Netflix or anything like that, they're paying you royalties for bringing that script in, you bring that stuff in. So it's really interesting what you can do with it, especially in the generative AI space. And I just think it's fantastic. Other than Pandora's box, if you go and tap into it, and, you limit the data and you limit access to it, and if anyone gets a monopoly on it, at the end of the day, that's going to be the scary stuff. But, hey, no, I'm an optimist. I like to see, like, what we can do with it in the future.
Awesome. And with those words, let's wrap up. What can people expect to read from you in Substack over the next
Oh,
weeks, months?
well, yeah, my Substack strategy is pretty much, bridging the gap between investors and first-time founders, and people really my age who want to sort of understand why investors invest in certain areas and why investors don't invest in certain areas. And that's really looking at the DCF model and sort of breaking it down for people. The reason why I started Substack in the first place is, number one, for me to learn more about the industry, so that one day when they do become my clients, I can sort of speak to them on a more humane level and sort of help them, give that value add that sometimes lawyers don't do. They just know the law and that's it. And I definitely don't want to be that kind of lawyer. Second reason was to really build that audience out and sort of use that as a lead gen tactic, hopefully in the future, if I do make it as a lawyer, to convert my clients, build out my brand, build out my skill set from that sector. And the third, I suppose, is, well, if I'm lucky and if I do it, it's a way for passive income. Well, not really passive income. It's one way to make money as well. So the subscription model in itself is highly successful in the in the UK. So if you write something and people are willing to pay for it, then that's brilliant. Encourage me to write more. And I think for young people, it's an alternative strategy to, I guess, instead of going to a business school, doing a for those people who can't afford, doing an MBA or doing a master's or anything like that, especially in this environment where, things are very expensive. I think it's a very inexpensive way to gain a lot of experience, open yourself up for feedback, and work in the real world, really, as opposed to, like, protected academic environment. Not to say that, it's not valid, but I'm saying it's an alternative way, which I think gives you a better hands-on experience than, let's say, a traditional degree or anything.
Awesome. I look forward
Awesome.
to following you.
Amazing stuff. Great to hear from you as well.
And thanks for this conversation, and keep in touch.